Hello, Tech Pros, episode 190.
Make plans like an adult. Believe in them like a child.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week, we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity. Wednesday, leadership. Thursday, technology. Friday, people and communication. Saturday, entrepreneurship. And Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Tanner Gers. Happy Monday, Tanner.
Happy Monday to you, Chad. Thanks so much for having me, brother.
You bet. It's my honor. Are you motivated to get this week started?
I am ready to rock and roll.
Awesome. An all-American kid growing up, Tanner Gers is a man who's been forced to reinvent himself over and over again throughout his life. But the biggest reinvention was moving forward after waking up in the hospital totally blind. Since that day, Tanner has influenced the world as the host of the Creative Success Show at creativesuccessshow.com, on his health and fitness blog, absolutelylean.com, and as a professional speaker, author, and a U.S. Paralympian. Tanner finds the fuel to achieve more and do more through fulfilling his big mission in life: help people across the world achieve their potential in every aspect of life, regardless of circumstance. Tanner, I love that mission. I think that's fantastic what you're doing, just in your life and on your blogs and on your show, man. And congratulations. It's a lot of work you're putting into this stuff, but to put it in a mission like that is that's what it's all about.
Thank you so much for saying that. It really means a lot to me. We definitely get a lot of clarity when we write stuff down, and you're right, it is a lot of work, but when you're doing what you love, like it's cool to crush a 15-hour day and feel good about it.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, people give me accolades, I guess, all the time, or just, wow, you're a crazy man or something for doing a 7-day-a-week podcast. But I'm like, you know what? Now that I'm doing it and now that I'm into it, and this is episode 190 that we're recording here today. It's like, I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't know why I didn't start this 2 or 3 years ago. It's awesome.
We talked about that on the pre-chat. For everybody listening, putting on a podcast and making it a quality product that provides information and value to the audience is a tremendous amount of work. So I am on my knees bowing to you, Chad. You are the man.
I am standing on the shoulders of greatness. There's a lot of other podcasters who have pioneered this industry and pioneered this work. And, I have some knacks for putting systems and processes together, and that's what it's all about. And it's about the stories of my guests and and their stories motivate me and push me to do this every day of the week. And so that's why I'm here, and also to share it with the audience, because I know there's men and women out here who are listening to this episode today going, okay, what am I going to get out of this? Well, I'll tell you, you're going to get motivated in your life, in your work, in your business, in the mission statement that you've got rattling around in your head, whether or not you've written it down or not. This episode is going to blow you away because we've both got some motivational things to share. But Tanner, you know what? Sometimes we're not in that high level of energy. Sometimes we're down and out. Sometimes we're in a funk. Sometimes life has beaten us up and gotten us down. And so we always start these episodes with kind of a reality check, right? So that we can all, say, okay, well, I haven't been through that, but I am going through something else and I can relate. So if you don't mind, share us that personal story of the time in your life when you were completely unmotivated, and then set us up with where you were, what happened, and then we'll get through it and see how we can overcome these challenges in our lives.
Certainly. And gosh, I mean, just to nail it down to just one, I'm becoming so much more self-aware that these things, they happen to us all. It just seems like, whether you sit on the couch or whether you get up and get after your day, adversity and failure is going to happen. So, I mean, it could be from, when I had my accident, or when I was going through school, or trying to find employment, or being an entrepreneur, or, putting myself out there in any circumstance. So, I mean, there's been failure riddled throughout my life. But if I could say, nail it down to one time, it was really when I was going back to school. And when you lose your sight, you often have this perception put on you by other people that you may have lost your mind, lack of intelligence, or that you're also deaf, and they can't hear you.
Mm.
But when I was going back to school originally, it was for business, and I was studying finance, and I was enrolling in these calculus-based business math classes, and we sat down with the dean, the instructors, and the disability student resources office. And they sat across the table from me and told me, hey, you know, you can't do this. You're not fast enough. You can't keep up with the material. There's no way you're going to interact with the people well enough to do this group work. And we advise you to drop out, to just not take this class. And that was a real big, gut check for me, where, people had been doubting me, and now they're telling me that you're not good enough. And, it took me a while to bounce back from that. And ultimately, when it was time to step up to the plate, they ended up we agreed upon me taking a semester off to work with the instructor, before this year-long course broken up into 2 semesters. And I ended up crushing it, got an A and then a B in the first and second semester respectively. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, being down and out on yourself is tough enough, but then when other people are throwing crap on top of it, it makes it even tougher.
Man, that's so powerful, because how many people in our lives are really there to lift us up no matter what and say, you can do it. I believe in you. I absolutely put my faith in you. I know you can get through this. And I know if you want it, like if you don't want it, cool. But if you do want it, you can absolutely nail it. I don't know about you, Tanner, but in my life, that those folks are few and far between. Luckily, I married the most wonderful woman in the world, and she is that person to me. And now we have a daughter, and we're all three, kind of keeping each other up and holding each other accountable to our hopes and dreams. And they are my two cheerleaders in my life. But other than that, man, it's tough to count on folks to really hold you up and say, I believe in you. I mean, I've got really close friends that were like, Chad, I think starting a podcast would be good for you, and I love your plan and mission, but 7 days a week, dude, you might want to drop it down to just maybe weekly and then see how it goes and see if you like it first.
Chad, you're hitting on some things that, definitely ring true in my life, and I'm sure ring true in a lot of other people's lives. I had to cut relationships because, just stop calling people back, stop hanging out, stop calling them. Because when you're around those words, that energy, that approach, like, hey, I love that you're doing this. You're a go-getter, an overachiever. I'm sure you've been called that a lot, as have I. And when people try to put limitations or ceilings on whatever your dream is, that's their limitation. That's their ceiling. The reason why you can't get someone else to align with the heights, the goals, the large achievements that you want to create in your life. The reason why you can't get people aligned with that is because that's not their dream, right? They have something else going on. Whatever they want to do, that's what they want to do. And whatever you want to do, go for it. Because the worst thing that could happen?
What's that?
You fail.
Yeah.
and then we get up and we try it again.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I've failed. And man, and just thinking about your 7-day-a-week podcast, I know with all the stuff I got in there, you just feel the pressure, the weight bearing down on you. And as you were saying, having your family, your wife and daughter, congratulations. It's so nice to have those cheerleaders in your life, because, those rocks, those foundations, that support team, they really make the difference and help you keep the rubber to the road.
So I love what you said there about having to cut relationships. Honestly, it hurt. Oh my God, Tanner, it hurts my heart so bad that I feel like I need to not necessarily cut people out of my life, but cut back on certain people in my life and just not having them around so much. And I only see them
Certainly.
every now and then. And when I do see them, I honestly have to see them with kind of defenses up and filters
Yeah.
up and not really listening to what they have to say. Hi, how you doing? Hugs and, share food and all that kind of stuff. But not really listening to what they're saying, because exactly what you said, they have their own ceilings, they have their own limitations, and they project that in life onto anybody else that will listen. I've heard over and over and over again from John Lee Dumas and a lot of other people, the saying that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right? So who are you spending your time with? And
Right.
it's unfortunate, but that means that if you want to spend time with people that are that will support you and will believe in you, that means you might have to cut back on some of the relationships that are not so positive.
100 million%. And I think that when I am around those people, because whether it's at work, right, or in some other situation where you're a part of something, you've committed to something, or you love doing something, and there's this, these, I don't want to say parasites, but these people that just drag you down, that you have to subject yourself to. My strategy for getting through that is I never have any kind of conversation deeper than a really surface level. I don't want to talk to them about politics. I don't want to talk to them about national education. I don't want to talk to them about their job. I don't want to talk to them about what's going on in their personal life, because when we start getting into those things, when we start peeling back those layers, that's when those ceilings come out. That's when those limitations come out, and that's when the negativity comes out. And they're, like you said, they're just going to project that onto you. So why subject yourself to the toxicity, and just stay really surface level with those individuals. Spot them, know what you need to do, and then execute.
So let's take it back to this point in time when you're sitting around the conference table with the dean and with the math heads and with your counselor, and you guys were trying to figure out the plan, and you're like, I want to do this. I want to take these math classes. And they were like, gosh, you know what? You have some limitations and I don't believe in you. We really think that it would be in your best interest to drop. Now, let's give these guys credit, guys and girls credit, right? They are experienced, right? They have a lot of experience in their field. They have a lot of education. They've seen a lot of maybe students come in that weren't highly motivated and didn't want to crush it, didn't want to tackle it, and didn't have a reason to do it. And they were just like, yeah, I'll sign up for extra classes or do things. How did that feel to you when you heard this from these people?
Well, it did not make me feel good, 100%. And it actually made me angry.
Mm,
And so, what I did, no one likes getting the silent treatment. And so, I knew that's what I needed to give this dean, was the silent treatment. She was trying to stir something up in me. And so I turned the tables, and I was going to stir something up with her. And the thing about this course, Chad, and what the dean was saying is that it's a required class to graduate, and you
mhm.
get 2 chances to take it. And if you don't pass in those 2 chances, you're going to have to change your major. And so that's what they wanted me to do. Is they wanted me to take an easier road. And they said often, we've seen it time and time again, every single semester, someone has to change their major, the complete course of action towards graduation, and ultimately possibly their career. We just think you need to save yourself and move in the other direction. I it made me feel horrible, but and it made me feel angry. And so when I gave that silent treatment and then I turned the tables and she got upset with me, she says, aren't you worried about this? And I said, no, I'm not. You know,
Mm.
and I asked her, I said, can you do your job? It's a rhetorical question, right? She goes, yeah. And I was like, great. And my job is to do this work, is to show up, participate in class, and pass the test. My job is to study. Your job is to teach. If you can do your job, I can do my job.
Wow. Wow. Threw it right back in her face, right? But in a healthy, productive manner, not calling her out and saying, hey, anything disrespectful, but just like we have a separation of duties here, and you really need to worry about your duty, which is teaching the material in the best way possible, and I need to worry about my duty, which is either making the decision to drop the class or making the decision to crush this class. But ultimately, each of those responsibilities is on each one of us.
Totally. And, here's how me being an advocate for myself, me standing up for what I believe in, which is myself, how that helped other people. So we took a semester off, like I told you, and one of the teacher that I ended up taking the class with, who was in this classroom, ended up getting sabbatical for that semester and developed the software, put up the software together so that me, being totally blind, can read these calculus problems without knowing Braille, and was awarded by the Mathematics Association of America, ended up being awarded consulting contract work for a consultant to help other companies do the same thing. And so basically, by me standing up for me and believing in myself and putting my foot down, it's helped other blind people chase the opportunity of living their dreams.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I mean, that's worth the price of admission right there, man. Just
Mm-hmm.
like you standing up for yourself. Yes, it felt good to like I'm sure it felt good to like own it, and own the situation, and to be responsible for yourself and to be successful, because you knew that you had, like you said, it wasn't a mental problem, right? It wasn't you can't keep up with people in the class. It was, you have a hard time, like understanding what's going on the page, and so you need more a different type of input, right? And so this person helped develop new screen reading software, new capability stuff that allowed other students to benefit from your challenge, from when you said, no, I'm not going to take this. Like, I'm going to get through it, and my getting through it is going to help me, but also it helped other people down the line. Man, that's absolutely amazing.
And Chad, and this is so analogous to everything else. Now, so he doubled down and put forth the effort for me, and I was doubling down too, and I was putting forth the effort. So, to give context to this situation, so it's a business math class, so it's group oriented, everything's group work, and I'm with other, qualified, intelligent individuals, and our homework assignments would be like 4 to 6 questions, and there's 4 or 5 of us depending on the semester, and we would work on these 4, 5, 6 math problems for hours, and it was so complicated. And then the presentations, business oriented, we have to, you know, present the situation, go down the numbers, say the moves that we were making, what the results were, and we would present this in front of the class. Now, here I am, totally blind, and I don't have the resources available to me then as I do today. There wasn't an iPhone back,
Mm-hmm.
back then. And so Dr. Cal Stanley was the professor, and he and I maintain a relationship to this day. He has he has told me and bragged to other people that I'm up at the front of the class and I'm delivering this presentation. I'm reciting off these complex math problems, putting in the specific numbers respective to the data that we're presenting, and they would look at, Cal would say, the students would look at me and they'd look at you, and then they'd look at me and they'd look at you, and your teammates, they'd look at the teammates are shrugging because they don't know how you do it.
Right.
And really it gets down to commitment, right? I was committed to being my best. I was going to do whatever it took to pass those classes and to step up to the plate and to handle the demands. And so it gets back to belief, commitment, and then that's how we execute. We got to put in the work. And when we do that, great things happen.
Man, just anytime you get up and give a presentation, um, for me anyway, it's always been such a nerve-wracking experience, right? To present in front of people, and I got my social anxiety things that are like triggering this fight, flight, freeze response, right?
Sure.
And so one benefit or one crutch, I guess, that many of us have is like PowerPoint. So if you aren't comfortable with presenting what you do, if you're not a great presenter or not a great speaker, you throw your PowerPoint up on the screen and you just read it, right? You're just reciting everything that's on there that the audience can just be like, dude, I could totally read this. I don't understand why you're telling me you're reading off every bullet point on here. Tell me the overall, right? Tell me the overall, or show me some picture, or show me something that's going to evoke some emotions, or really allow me to focus on what you're saying. But you didn't have that crutch. You had to memorize every bullet point. You had to memorize every equation. You had to memorize every point of data that you wanted to tell in order to present this.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and that's the crutch that the others could use, is they could turn and look at the screen and read the problem, and then turn back to the audience and address and provide the context behind it. I didn't have that. So, and there's ways that we can get around that. The skill. So speaking is a skill, right? Is there a ceiling for potential, a genetic ceiling for potential? Sure. But because if you can talk, if you can make noise come out of your mouth, you can develop the skill. And thereby your ability to improve your presentation skills is almost limitless.
That's amazing. So I'm thinking about this group scenario, right, where you and 3 or 4 other students are really working on these very, very difficult problems together. You're solving equations together. You're putting your presentations together. And then take it back to that moment where, the educators were like, we think, Tanner, that maybe it's in your best interest to drop. And they had these limitations on you. Do you think there might be, because that they were afraid of how it was going to affect the productivity and the success of the other people? Like, maybe this Tanner guy has good intentions, but because he may be slow or he may be struggling in this area, that means his teammates are going to be struggling and be held back because of him.
I think that is definitely something that was on the table, but it was a much smaller object than the other. And keyword, you said it there, afraid. They had fear of, so they don't want to be judged by their ability to teach, right? And so they have a fear of me failing because, one, they don't want another student in their class failing. And number 2, a fear around, can I teach this? I've never been outside of my comfort zone of just standing up at the top, pointing at the screen, saying, look at those pictures. You can see that there, and you can see this there. How are they going to put 1,000 words into my head, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words. Right. So they can just point to it, where now is it needs to be described. So fear all over the place. Maybe a little bit of fear of an influence on other students, but mostly fear surrounding themselves.
Man, that's so powerful. I'm getting goosebumps just talking to you, man. It's great stuff. Tell you what, let's take a break and thank our sponsors. When we come back, I want to talk to you about, we've got so many technical professionals here on the line, here on the call, here listening into this podcast, that are software developers and database administrators and they're app developers, and they're, putting things together. So, maybe you've got some great ideas to inspire them on how to build their tools, how to build their products in a way that is more accessible for other people, either with, who don't have their sight or don't have their hearing or some other issue as well. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk about that. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage. Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io. Are you new to podcasting? Are you looking for a fast, high-quality, yet budget-friendly podcast production team? Let TransSource Media take care of you. With a team of professional audio and video editors, writers, and graphic artists, they can help you build your podcast from planning, post-production, and platform submission. Using only cutting-edge software and studio equipment, they're here to make each and every show sound at its best. To get a free quote, please visit www.transsourcemedia.com or send them an email at marketing@transsourcemedia.com or call them at 209-505-5693. TransSource Media, transforming businesses through the power of multimedia. Okay, we're back with Tanner Gers. Tanner is a man of many talents. He's got a podcast. He's got a fitness blog. He's a U.S. Paralympian, which we haven't even really discussed. But dude, hats off to that. That's amazing. And he is an individual who is totally blind, and he has overcome so many adversities. We've just been talking about the story of the huge motivational impact thing that happened to him when he went back to school and said, you know what, I want to get this degree in business and mathematics, and I got to take all these really hard classes, and really didn't have a great support system in place. And they're like, yeah, I don't know if you can do it. And so he had to just step up and prove that, yeah, if you can teach the class, then I can take the class and I can do the learning. So through that awesome experience of you crushing that class, you actually inspired some individuals to develop new software, develop new tools that allowed other people to learn this material, learn these very complex mathematical equations, right, without needing the site or without needing Braille. So for those of us who haven't worked with the blind or work with software that require this kind of stuff, kind of walk us through what tools are in place or what tools are necessary to a blind person, and then maybe we can help inspire somebody to come up with new accessibility methods.
Certainly. So I am a Windows user, and I use a Windows-based software called JAWS, which stands for Job Access with Speech. There's also Apple products, the VoiceOver, that is a screen reading software, and basically it reads text. So any kind of image, unless there's alt text embedded on that image, there is no way for me to know what it is. Facebook is doing some really, really cool things with providing computer generated alt text automatically. So it will actually describe a little bit of a picture that's taken, which is absolutely phenomenal and makes me really excited about the future. But MailChimp is doing a really good job with this. MailChimp has actually hired me to do some consulting with them and help them make their platform more accessible. And they are my email service provider. So it's really nice for me to get into their dashboard and toggle around in the ways that I do. So if you could imagine taking away the mouse, if you need a mouse to execute a specific task, for example, dragging and dropping, I can't do it. Okay? And so, but tabbing and shift tabbing and typing in edit fields and pulling down drop-down boxes, checking check boxes or radio buttons, clicking on buttons, we can do that. Especially when those form fields are labeled. When they're labeled with alt text, we know exactly what it is. We know exactly where we are. And because we filled out forms before, we can estimate how far along we are in the process. A sighted individual can look at a screen and say, wow, that's a lot of form fields. A blind person just can unknowingly is just walking in the dark, if you will, going through this form without a real understanding of how much further we have to go. But yes, so that's the big takeaway that I helped Mailchimp understand is that if you need a mouse to execute a task for a blind person, it is not accessible.
So, what kind of apps or what kind of functions right now are maybe inaccessible because they do require a mouse? They do require interactivity instead of, like keyboard, shift click or shift space, function F1 kind of stuff. What is completely inaccessible? Maybe we can inspire somebody to go take a look at and develop a different way to do it.
Certainly, social media scheduling platforms are very inaccessible. Meet Edgar is probably the most accessible one that I've seen. But for example, Hootsuite is completely inaccessible. And through my connections at MailChimp, got to sit down with them, and they said, yes, our platform is based around mouse.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, we're not going to be able to accommodate a text-based, keyboard-based functioning platform. And that's fun. I mean, I understand, but yeah, so social media can be really difficult, even as large as Facebook is and as much money as they put into their things. Facebook is a largely inaccessible. There's a lot of PDFs can be inaccessible because it's just a picture of words, and unless you have the appropriate software, optical character OCR,
Mm-hmm.
optical character
Recognition.
recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, by developed initially by Ray Kurzweil. Then you're not going to be able to access that. And I mean, that's a four-figure software. So it's over $1,000.
Mm.
But so that's what I think it looks or it feels cleaner. I can't say looks because I've never seen it. I have no way to do it, but I also do business development with a company called Linkages Experience. And here's another problem that is in the marketplace is job boards.
Wow.
Job boards are largely inaccessible, and in today's society where everything's moving online, you don't go to a place and fill out an application and hand it to them. They direct you online, and when you can't upload your resume or you can't, this has happened to me where I've gone completely through the application process and I'm just needing to hit submit, and you can't hit submit. How
Wow.
frustrating that is. And now we're segregated. We're put in this pool where we either one have to call in and waive our rights to, you know, disclosing that we're disabled,
Mm-hmm.
or two, we have to walk away. And so either way, you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, because I mean, we have policies, right? That you can't ask people about their disabilities. You can't ask people about certain aspects of their health, right? You have to just look at all applicants as being equal because that's the way it should be. But if
Right.
you put your tools together, if you put your submission form together in a way that just purposefully or accidentally or however you want to say it excludes people from the process, then you know what? You have already asked them that question. You have already asked them, through their actions, through filling out this form and not being able to click the submit button because it doesn't have like an action button where you can just tab over to the submit button and then hit the return on your keyboard.
Hmm.
Then now you have limited those people, and now they're going to have to choose. Okay, well, I have to tell you that I have this disability, that I have sight impairment, or that I'm not going to apply because if your job form is this difficult, then how's the rest of the job going to be?
Right. And then it gets back to what the math instructors or dean was facing when I was going back to school, and it gets to fear.
Mm.
How are they going to operate in the job? What am I going to have to do to make this happen, to help them? Are they going to drag us down? Is this going to be a money losing thing? How long will they stick around? What kind of loyalty are we looking at? Will they even be able to execute? Is this a qualified candidate? They can't even submit a job application. Right. So all these fears and questions keep popping up. And then guess what? That even if you do get it submitted and you do get the interview, where does that put you?
Mm.
How much of an equal opportunity do you have?
So, what would you like to see? What would you like to experience from this system? Right? Should we go back, like as developers? Should we go back and say, you know what, we need to just refactor all of this code out here and make it more accessible, or do we build new products that specifically feature on accessibility, or is it just an awareness problem across the board? What can we do to help?
I think it starts with awareness because when we are aware of things, when we go to build them, then we can develop the foundations to make accessibility an important issue, a cornerstone of the structural tech stuff that we're building. But honestly, Chad, I am not the most technically savvy person. I had to become more tech savvy because of the screen reader issues. I mean, any monkey can grab a mouse, point, and click, right? But figuring out how to navigate a point and click world with a keyboard can be a little bit more difficult. So I think it starts with awareness, and I also think that just trying to make things not so don't for I guess don't forget about the details,
Hmm.
the behind the scenes stuff, like the alt text. Does a sighted person need alt text? No, they don't, because they know what it is. They can see it and they can observe it. But somebody else who might not have the best vision, or might be using an accessibility technology or software, might need that alt text. They might need those labels. And by you doing so, by you taking the extra 2 minutes to make sure that everything's appropriately labeled, that we don't have a barrier that is a drag and drop, a mandatory drag and drop. Provide other options to do the same task. It's not that you can't have a drag and drop convenience, it's that you need to also have an alternative way to get to Rome, right?
Mm-hmm.
So have multiple roads that lead to Rome, and have your convenient drag and drops, have your all your mouse stuff, but also have an opportunity for other people who can to navigate and use your system with a keyboard.
Man, that's so great. Such great advice. And hopefully, we've inspired some folks to go back and look at the apps, look at the code that they're building, look at the software that they're working with. If they're managers or entrepreneurs or founders of companies, maybe really take a hard look at what you guys are putting together. Right? What are the systems in place? What are the technologies that you're using? What are the accessibility requirements that you're putting into your programs? And let's make things a little easier. I mean, in some ways, it's like it's putting the same things that were in computers a long time ago, right? Back when we
Right.
had before Windows, before Macintosh, before all these systems, these drag and drop systems were available. Everything was absolutely accessible through keyboard, right? You
Yes.
all the functions, absolutely 100% of the functions were tab and alt and function and space and arrow keys and whatnot, and moving around the screen that way. And since then, since we have implemented the GUIs, it's like we've kind of wanted to purposely forget that all that other accessibility options are available. And it's no, we need both. We need both at the same time.
So here's something that we're doing, and I don't know if the founder or the chief technical officer came up with this idea based on what Google and Amazon does, but it doesn't have to look pretty. That is the greatest thing about working with blind people, is you don't have to clean up house when they're coming over. Right? They don't know they don't know that there's clothes everywhere, right? So what we've done to help other companies create accessibility is provide an accessible link to the accessible platform, right? So you can say, hey, if you need an accessible version, click here, and it takes them to a site or a platform or an opportunity where everything is really kind of not fancy, right? It's
Mm.
very just basic, dumbed down. It doesn't have to have crazy awesome design. It doesn't have All it needs to do is be functional, and you will get raving reviews, lifelong fans, if if one, you're accessible, and people are accessing it, and two, it's a great rapport building for your existing clientele and customer base, right? What a great marketing opportunity is to say, hey, not only are we providing you this awesomeness, but we're also making sure that all individuals have access to this by, helping visually impaired people do XYZ, or helping people who use assistive technology do XYZ. So it's a win-win.
That's awesome, and I love that you pointed out earlier that Meet Edgar is a tool that has this. So I had Laura Roeder on the show back on episode 135. So guess if you don't know what Meet Edgar is, it's a social media like scheduling tool, right? So you can schedule when your posts go out onto Twitter or to LinkedIn or to Facebook or whatever, and it recycles the same content over and over. And so, full disclosure, I am a customer of theirs, and Laura didn't pay me to say great things about it, but I love that tool. And if you want to go check it out, listen to that episode, you can go to hellotechpros.com/135. Tanner, I really appreciate this conversation, but before we wrap it up and end it, do you have any final words of wisdom for our audience? And then share the best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Awesome. Definitely. Thank you again so much for having me. It has been a pleasure. I've loved this conversation. I think that the final parting advice that I would give is, I'm a big motivation guy because I know that I'm also a human being and I have emotions and I'm up and I'm down. And so I like to put myself in front of motivational messages a lot. And one of my favorite gentlemen who speaks on motivation is no longer with us, but his name is Jim Rohn. And he said one time, make plans like an adult, believe in them like a child. And when we do that, when we take action and believe in what we're doing like a child, with the background of having plans like an adult, architecturally building what we intend to build, augmented by the belief of a child, we can do some amazing, amazing things. I'm proof in the pudding, and I know that there's a lot of people out here who are proof in the pudding too. So make plans like an adult, believe in them like a child. And the best place to get a hold of me, I think a lot of times that there's so much value that we have to bring, but it often gets swept under the rug or never even noticed because we don't know how to communicate it. And as you had indicated early on in the conversation, it is about relationships. Being able to connect with somebody and communicate the message that you're intending to communicate is huge. It goes a long, long way in almost any aspect of life, whether it's parenting, whether it's coaching, whether it's relationships, co-workers, and it's communicating with your boss or communicating to your followers and your employees, your subordinates. Communication is huge. And so I've got the best place to connect with me is, I would love it if you joined us on a free course called Telling Better Stories. And you can find that at creativesuccessshow.com/pros, and for Hello Tech Pros. And we'll go ahead and hook it up right there. And it's a free course, free video course.
Awesome, Tanner. I appreciate that, because you know what? As a person who struggled with social anxiety pretty much my whole life, from looking back, 10, 11, 12 years old to now, I still have problems and struggle with reaching out to people and communicating to people and telling stories and just creating engagement with people. It's tough. And so anything that we can do to help, and I know there's a lot of technical professionals out there who, honestly, we got into technology because you don't have to deal with people, right? You got
Sure.
into technology because it's easy to sit there in front of a screen or in front of a keyboard and mouse and punch the buttons because the computer's going to do exactly what you tell it to do. And humans are weird. Humans humans are strange. So I really appreciate you putting this content together, putting this material and this course together to help us in these situations to be better presenters, to be better speakers, and to understand what it means to be human and how to connect with people. And also, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing the story of your adversity and your tenacity to just, look, we're getting through this no matter what. Like, it's on you to take care of your business, and it's on me to take care of my business. And I promise you that I'm going to take care of mine. So everybody else needs to just like step out of the way and make stuff happen. So I appreciate you sharing that with us today.
Yeah, brother. It was my pleasure, Chad, and you're the only person who can live your dreams. So let's live them.
Awesome. Tech Pros, you have been listening to Tanner Gers, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/190. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Motivation Monday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I talk about productivity. On Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. Then next week, we start it all over again with Motivation Monday. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.